Thank you so much, Jay, for joining us today. Today, we want to talk a little bit about vibe coding.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jay, we have taken this unique AI opportunity in two swim lanes. The first is applying on software, and the second is to apply it on operations of enterprises and reinventing businesses. Keeping a lens on the first swim lane, which is applying on software, we work with the GitHub teams, and it's actually been one of our biggest platforms for our developers. I would say the single biggest platform for our developers. And we've created a science behind bringing effort from machines and integrating it with human effort and creating productivity. We are one of the first companies which has audited these numbers, and we on a quarterly basis we put it on our earnings. And we started in 2024. It was 18% of the effort on the software development cycles are machine assisted, and right now, I just concluded my earnings last week. It is 30%. My own prediction is there is more runway on this. I wanted to hear from you how far you think machine-led productivity will take us. And just a follow-up on that, if you believe that at AGI, and whatever you define AGI is, would you shape code directly into production, or you still think there is a human effort needed?
Yeah, so interesting. So one, congratulations on that progress in terms of the 18% to 30%. I'm super happy that you, one, measure it and that you're transparent about this, because I think we're all in this learning journey in terms of how to adopt and use this to drive, productivity, but also I think to drive higher levels of human creativity and human collaboration, right? So I think in terms of maybe answering your specific question of how much more further we can take it, I think there's a lot of runway, because, and I'll give you a few points here, which is one is, remember the technology, this AI, the LLMs, the scaffolding around it, the things that we're working on in GitHub with Agent HQ and being able to use multiple different coding agents, using different agents for different parts of the software development life cycle, putting that all together, being able to compose that team. Okay, here's an agent that can help me create mocks for a particular concept. Here's a set of agents that can write the code. Here's a set of agents that help me review and test and, phase out a deployment into production and grab production telemetry and then feed that back into fixing bugs or security vulnerabilities. I think we're very early in that journey of all of the technology and the development that can happen. Two is these models. Remember, these models are not static. They're getting better every single day, right? In profound ways that we as humans still don't comprehend. And we have to, and I've said this before, right, which is, in my belief, is that Microsoft's been around for 50 years. If you sum up all of the code that has been written and generated in the last 50 years together, we probably are at 1% of the code that will be created in the next 10 years, right? And so why do I believe that? It's because in order to unlock the capabilities of all these models, remember, it's not just one model either. It's lots of models, big ones, small ones, open, closed. To unlock that potential and to really translate that into solving business problems, advancing science, health, all of these kind of amazing things that people dream about today, we just have to write a lot more software. So I actually think a lot more software is going to get created, and that 18% that you have to 30% should get to 50%. We should go much higher than this. And part of it's a human thing too. So I'm curious, how much of the 18 to 30% was for you, culture, education, training, kind of mindset, incentive changes for the organization?
Yeah, this has been a fascinating science for us. One is to reorganize our developer bandwidth in conjunction with machines. Sometimes you throw stuff at the LLMs. It goes into the background and it's working, and you should be able to parallel process a bunch of things. So creating a new rhythm at work has been a learning for us. At one point of time, we thought validation and verification is a machine endeavor, creativity is a human endeavor. But I've gone back and forth on it. And if you want to do creativity at scale, potentially machines can do it at scale. And humans are driven for validation and verification. So we've kind of gone back and forth on understanding it. The other thesis I have been testing is, companies like ours, we run pyramids on our capability, and we hire a lot of school graduates. And the popular thesis is you need less of school graduates, and the pyramid is going to become a cylinder or a diamond. I have a reverse thesis on it. I think we'll have a broader pyramid and a shorter pyramid, because the path to expertise is much faster, and you could push the instrumentation to these new school graduates who can give you more throughput. And I've written a lot about it. I kind of want to hear from you. So we have started to revisit the pyramid, more school graduates, instrumentation around us. We created a culture of vibe coding, micro producers, as I call it. We had 200,000 people inside the company at the same point, concurrently coding. We had 50,000 prototypes, and we hit the Guinness Book of Records, keeping that, the idea was to create that culture. But in the process, we started to learn that it's also very jagged. The productivity is very jagged. The things which we believe machines can do it easily, it takes the machines harder. And the things which humans can do, humans find it difficult to do, machines can do it easily. So the ability to integrate the human work, human effort, and the machine effort is also an integral part of improving productivity. I don't know if you had any comments on some of these things we are trying to discover on the way.
Yeah, I think organizations are all, they're all going through this, many of them, in terms of, should we be hiring the same, more or less, at different levels of seniority, tenure in the company as well? What does the team and org structure need to look like? And I agree with everything you've said. I think there is definitely opportunity to invest more in new college grads, and in many ways they've been using this stuff the longest in some ways, right? And so and like in some ways it's kind of counterintuitive that they've never learned the old way of doing these things. And there's kids that are going into middle school today that have never written code without a co-pilot, and that's astonishing to me, but also super cool. I would say the other thing that I talk about is this like merging of functions, right? I think in a lot of organizations we've had, and I think, developed communities, geos, we've all, I think for a long time, very, very much specialized in our educations and our careers. And I think we're going to see the organizations that really adapt the fastest to this technological wave are going to be the ones that throw away some of that hyper specialization that happens in the function and start to merge teams, merge cultures, merge ways of working, and not be so, I think, structured in the functions, the cost centers, the specializations, the levels, all of that. And because it's interesting just to even see, and I'm sure you see it, we have folks that are not software engineers being able to intercept, take bugs or customer requirements, being able to build them, get them to a point where there is a PR, maybe still then one of the engineers will review that, accept it, and push it into production. And then we've got folks in engineering who can do some of these more other functions, whether it be coming up with like demo mocks or being able to kind of help write with a PR, like the mock press release for a new feature, being able to do market research or competitive research, et cetera. So now you have access to these tools that kind of fold these different functions together. And and that I'm actually excited about, because again, I think it just drives that higher level of creativity, collaboration, and hopefully that pushes top line growth for organizations, not just this like efficiency saved on like dollars and hours saved.
Yeah, I mean, you're so spot on. It says, in some ways, the technology is a silo buster. So, functional roles have been built from the Industrial Revolution, and we've kind of evolved those roles, and we've created departments and cost centers, as you rightly pointed out. Those will blur. We're going to see more networked structures versus hierarchical structures. We are probably going to see the asymmetry is no longer going to be about intelligence of individuals and intelligence of enterprises. Intelligence is on your fingertips. So interdisciplinary skills are probably going to be the premium. I mean, that's where the moat and the asymmetry is going to come from. And you so well pointed out that interdisciplinary skills at the intersection of a domain and technology will be more valuable than expertise in one specific domain. I mean, if you're a history major, having computational skills might actually be a better thing to do versus super specializing in that particular function. I'm just going to switch gear and ask you a different question. One of the things we have started to realize is in the microprocessor era, we wrote this deterministic instructions and we got deterministic output. And here we are in a contextual era, contextual computing era. And we've kind of started to build a science called context engineering. And I've written quite a bit about it. I wanted to check on what you think about it. Weaving the context is very important in the contextual computing era. And agents have to be very contextual, having the tribal knowledge, the data flows, workflows, execution patterns fed into, so that you have more productive agents on the other side. And we've been kind of trying to master it. And every time we do this, we learn more. So context and context engineering, and we're starting to teach our engineers how to be contextual and how to feed that into the LLMs to create the contextual computing paradigm. I want to know if you had a view on that.
Yes, I largely agree with everything you said and the importance of it, and being able to help train, teach, keep adapting and learning on that front. I would say a couple of things. One, it's hard because the models keep changing, right? So the way you need to think about context engineering is different every week almost, because depending on which model you're using, which problem you're trying to solve, the way you think about that prompt, that context is going to be different. And then the harness or the system around the models change, and what you can tap into to other tools or other types of patterns that they expose in the API that are also now part of that context. The thing I would add to quote unquote context engineering that I see and as part of our focus in our underlying agent factory, our kind of AI platform specifically, is there's the models, there's the context engineering that you build around it to do some job. Then, and part of this is all context, but then there's like specifically how do you tap into the enterprise knowledge, right? So the enterprise data, and that's going to be like, let's say for an industrial company, you're going to have all these industrial processes, right? And those are very bespoke to that, maybe oil and gas, energy, manufacturing company. These are things that are not broadly in the open. So the foundation model companies won't train on this data, right? And so that context engineering can be more valuable with the model when the enterprise knowledge is there too, right? So that's an addition, I would say, is that enterprise knowledge. Then the third part that I would add to this in terms of that feedback loop is everything around evals, right? Being able to do context engineering, but also upping your level of ambition and intuition and expertise around writing those evals, because ultimately you can do all the context engineering you want, but you got to know if what comes out the other end is right or wrong, right? And you can scale that system the more you invest and get better at writing the evals as the system, with the knowledge, with the context, gets more valuable in terms of delivering the outcome. And then the last thing I would probably add to all of this is, down to the individual, down to the team, there's some notion over time, and I don't actually think we have a good solve for this from a technology perspective, is the memory. It's like that personalized thing to the team, to the individual. There's a notion around how this person wants to work, what they're working on, how they work with this model or models or system. There's a level of like memory or personalization to that. And so to me, it's context, the enterprise data, evals, plus the memory.
Completely spot on. In fact, I've started to read about AI memory. I don't know whether you have started to think about it. I mean, it's a combination of all these things which you so very well articulated. We are also starting to see agentic cycles very different to software cycles. I mean, building an agent, and I want to get your views. I mean, software development cycles were linear. You scope, design, develop, deploy, test and deploy, and then you maintain. In agents, you actually scope for outcomes, you design for behavior, you do iterative development, you test even at inference time, and you don't keep the lights on and maintain, you actually supervise agents. So we're starting to put a methodology for ADLC, and we think it is different to SDLC. And the science of doing ADLC is very, very different. I don't know whether you have any initial impressions about the ADLC versus SDLC.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so one is thinking very similarly in terms of how we build out the AI-powered tools pillar of Core AI, namely everything we're doing in GitHub. So last week at GitHub Universe, we announced Agent HQ, and we announced mission control dash like experience, right? And you can have mission control on VS Code, you can have it in .com, wherever you are, it follows you around. And it basically has those in many ways. I used to describe this maybe a little bit, maybe it's a little comical, but like I used to describe this as, for decades, we worked kind of, even though we had Agile and all that, it was still the like design something, go write code, test it, deploy it, the inner loop, the outer loop, right? But we were, as humans, very serial going through that process, right? And we would throw more people on it, try to parallelize things. But now as a human, I can actually orchestrate multiple SDLCs in parallel. Think of them as like almost like different multiverses that I get to orchestrate across. And I could, put up on my screen, depending on, my budget of tokens that I can spend. I can put up, 4 terminals. I can kick off, hey, vibe code this new idea I have. Hey, go and hammer through these 4 GitHub issues to fix these security vulnerabilities. Here's like another thing that came in from customer support that go debug, figure out what happened and, fix this, right? And hey, I'm new to this repository. Can you go and like write a training plan for me to learn this code base? I can do all of that probably in a half hour. Walk away, go to some other meetings where I'm creating, talking to customers, whatever it be, come back, check in on the work. It'll all be encapsulated in mission control. And you can double click on these things, see what's happening. You can inspect them. They may stop saying, hey, I need help. I need guidance. Can you answer me a question here? So being able to orchestrate these different multiverses, I think is like, one, it's going to be hard. There's lots of unsolved problems right now, but I think that is going to be where to use your term, ADLC is totally the envelope for this.
Completely spot on. I mean, so well said. Just switching gear, you kind of touched upon it. I mean, in some ways, the way I see the classical software era, the production value was so premium, and then there was literally a distinctive set of consumers, and you had super users who kind of configured things. Do you see a continuum developing with producers on the way, which are not necessarily uh, producing from scratch, but tweaking things on their own. So the ones who are actually using it are also producing it. And therefore, you just don't have this 25 million developers in the world developing and everybody else consuming. You have micro producers in that continuum. Is that a possibility in the way software is going to be consumed and written?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we have some interesting data on this already, right? So as part of the Octoverse report that we put out last week, Ravi and team, we now see one new developer sign up to GitHub every second.
Wow.
Right. So there's a new developer joining the GitHub community every second somewhere in the world, right?
They're not probably full-time developers.
It's interesting that the definition, as I talk about it, the definition of developer is changing. And that's why I refer now more and more to builders.
Builders, yeah.
Right, because anybody can be a builder. And I truly believe that like more and more of these AI native organizations or teams are going to be where most of the people can be and build, right? Now they'll build different things. Some people will build kind of new ideas and mocks, demos of things, concepts of things. There will be other people who are passionate about building, back-end systems or, building full stack systems or maybe modernizing code bases, right? The second thing I would say is like, imagine if, we've had so much, I would say, cost in maintaining software. Like you build these things, you design them, you hope they're going to last a long time, and then you maintain them. But now if the cost of rewriting, iterating, rebuilding something, do we take a different lens on how we think about building software systems where the half-life could be dramatically shorter? And what does that do in terms of your work cycle, your team structure, your ability to more quickly deliver value to your customers?
Absolutely. I mean, just the art of the possibilities of what can happen to a world where we're going to kind of hand over the production rights of software to consumers and super users, and the diversity of talent you're going to get into building software is going to be very different. I mean, you're going to see non-STEM disciplines into the world of building software. Jay, thank you so much. That was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Ravi. And I'm really excited and grateful for our partnership and looking forward to working on more of your priorities together.